Hello, today I'm looking at a poster for Pitch Perfect 2, and I'm going to be honest, I really don't know what that is. I've never seen Pitch Perfect 1, nor do I really care to after seeing this poster. But this caught my eye, and that's what I'm always looking for, is a poster to catch my eye. And the purpose behind why I do this is because I want to call attention to the way that big budget films have bad posters, not as a result of the designer, but because of how quickly they turn them around and how sloppy they are towards the approach. But it matters because people hang these things up, so it should have a level of professionalism to it. It should have a level of artistry to it. So let's look at this one first. Zoom out all the way for one thing. All right, that's lovely. Another thing is just general concept of the poster being a number of people just spread out all over the page. This essentially happens when somebody comes up with a poster, or they're trying to come up with a poster idea, really, and nothing comes to mind. So contractually they have to show all the faces or what have you, so they just throw a bunch of people up, stand them on top of a texture, and you might think it's really simple, just line up all the actors, take a photo, you're good, but that's actually not what happens at all. These are all taken individually and photoshopped together, and numerous problems come with that, and if you don't take the time, if you're sloppy about it, they show. One of the first things you can see is whenever you take a figure from a background, there's a couple of pixels. If you use an automated process especially, which you do more often than not if you're in a hurry, and it leaves a ring of pixels around the edge of the figure. That has to be removed manually pretty much all the time. You cannot get rid of it through an automated process. So if I zoom in really close and I look right here at this foot, you can see that pixel halo running around the edge. What you have to do is go in with a small brush, you can see it here, and just lightly erase the edges to clean it up. Now they did that up on the head and the shoulders because that's the most prominent place, but there's many places where it stays visible throughout the rest of the image. Here's one running down actually the full length of this arm. How do you miss that? You go up to the top, it's mostly gone. In fact, you can see a little bit. You can see how the top of her head gets a little hazy there. That's because they're using a soft eraser to go around the edges. You'll notice something else too in terms of this texture in the background, which by the way, I'm fairly sure this is the same photo texture down here as up here. I feel very strongly that it is. I would say about 80-90% sure. And so I think they just flipped it and put it up there, but the lighting is so similar, everything's so similar, I'm pretty sure that's the same thing. If I look in really close on that, you'll see a big discrepancy though. I've mentioned on, I think it was the Mad Max video, that where a figure touches the ground, if you're moving them onto a new plane, where they touch the ground is the most awkward place to make it feel right. It's very difficult. You can see this in particular around all of these feet where the shadows just don't feel quite right. They should actually be a little darker coming around the bottom edge here to really make that blend in, but even then it's tricky to do. It's extremely hard to do. And you can see they were incomplete with their shadow here. There's a tiny bit of highlight showing up underneath, so this little ring underneath there. Laziness. That's pretty much what it comes down to. And by the way, zooming in this far is not cheating. If this is printed, it's shown at a very high resolution. Let's say 24 by 36, 300 pixels per inch. These problems are going to show big time. Another thing you can see here is, why does this shoe look so different from the texture behind it? Why does it look so different? The reason being is because not all their assets are of adequate resolution. Their figures are of good resolution, but this photo texture that they have brought in is actually much too low resolution to be used on a poster this size, and that becomes really obvious as you zoom in. All of this stays crisp, and this looks like something extremely muddy. Very unpleasant. Common problem for students, not if you're putting together a poster for a high budget movie. And there's a few other obvious things, such as light direction. All these figures, the light is blooming in the exact same spot, which if they're standing next to each other in different geographic locations, that would not be the case. But we've got this same forehead highlight on pretty much every single one. Why is that? It's because all these photos were taken individually, and then they were not really treated. They were just lit flatly from the front. very boring to look at. I did notice, and this was kind of interesting, where is this mystery rim light? There's a reflected light coming back and hitting the face of just this one figure. You don't see this rim light anywhere else. Well, reflected light really. Not on the sides of the legs, clothing, arms, nothing. Just on this one figure. So why is that? To be honest, all the rest of the figures could have used one. It would have added a little bit of life to it. The last thing to look at would be the text in relationship to the background and on the texture. This 2 right here with the fuzzy edges, this is obviously just Photoshop brushes. The fact that it's so solid is actually really unpleasant because it's a neon yellow. It's just nothing about this. This does not have a good color palette. Nothing. There's really not much appealing in this poster at all. Versus previous ones I've looked at, which were sloppy but actually had some nice elements to them. This one does not. It really has nothing going for it. Then if you go up here to the top, you can see how they wanted to give it the feeling that this text was painted onto the texture behind it. That actually takes a lot of work if you want to make it look real. It takes special brushes, things with texture on them to really make it feel like it interacts. It is a part of painted on the wall. What they did here is they just took a soft brush and they used it to essentially lower the opacity of parts of these letters. For example, down here you can see through, up here you cannot. Didn't really work though, and it doesn't. You can't just lower the opacity and think, well, that makes it look like it's on the wall. It just doesn't work that way. Again, it's a shortcut that you get away with when you are completely backed up and unable to do anything else. You have to get that turned around as fast as you can. And all designers face that at some point, but it is an absolute epidemic in movie posters today. So if you hang this one on your wall, if you're a big Pitch Perfect fan and you hang this on your wall, I'm sorry to say that it'll probably come with quite a few mistakes and also just an extremely unappealing color palette of grays and desaturated skin tones and then yellow. Very unpleasant.